A 16-year-old girl, recently underwent surgery for a heart condition. Now, I am in the process of recovery. In the hospital, my condition has improved. During my time in the hospital, I experienced a disagreement with my mom and her husband, Jason. My mom and I had to figure out if my feelings were justified. My childhood was marred by tragedy after my father had an accident when I was 6 years old. He suffered severe brain injuries that changed his life. He lost the ability to care for himself and was confined to a wheelchair. Speech recovery was slow. Years later, his condition stabilized, but the effects remained lifelong. My parents divorced after my father's accident. My mom married Jason. The relationship between my mom and I became complicated when she expected me to accept Jason as a father and let go of the past with my biological father. She even tried to limit my visits with him, which was not approved by the court. Jason has expressed his disappointment several times about my unwillingness to consider him as a father. I am not particularly close to my sister and stepbrothers. I realize it's not their fault. I am rarely home and prefer to keep my distance to avoid being close to my mom or Jason. During my stay in the hospital, after learning about my upcoming surgery, I called my uncle. I asked that Dad come to see me, as Mom was against his presence. My mom expressed concern that seeing my dad in his condition might have a negative effect on the other children. I countered that they didn't have to see him, but I wanted Dad to be there for me. I explained to my mom that I would prefer his presence to their presence. I even said that I would prefer Dad to her and Jason. I emphasized that regardless of his disability, he was still my dad and she had to accept that. Otherwise, she risked losing me. Dad was with me before the surgery. When I woke up, Mom was still angry about what I had said. She couldn't let it go until I came home from the hospital. My siblings felt rejected after my words, calling me an idiot. You're not an idiot. Your mom made mistakes leaving your father and forcing you to accept Jason. Jason's not perfect either. He caused strife between you and your siblings. It was unfair and cruel. That's not the kind of thing a child should hear. You have every right to want to be around your father. The way your mom is trying to exclude him from your life is unacceptable. She is in danger of losing you because of her actions. Jason should be more careful. If something happens to him, he could find himself in a situation similar to what your father experienced. You can't just turn off your father and turn on a new one. Your father will always remain your father, regardless of his ability to be a parent. Your mom apparently forgot her vow to be there for you in sickness and health. Yes, your mom's behavior toward people with disabilities seems unfair. You shouldn't blame your siblings for this. It has nothing to do with them. But be prepared for your mom and Jason's attitude toward you to change. I hope you get better soon. Next story. I am 39 years old. My daughter recently turned almost 17 years old. My husband of 42 years and I advised her to choose a restaurant for her birthday party. She preferred seafood, although we had not been there before. As we studied the menu, we discovered that most of the dishes contained shellfish. There were also fish appetizers and a few dishes with meat. However, only a couple of dishes did not contain seafood. Our son, a teenager, is deathly allergic to shellfish and cannot tolerate fish. The restaurant found only a few dishes he could eat. I was against taking him there, fearing for his health and possible cross-contamination, so I suggested that my daughter choose another place. My son offered to stay home. He said it would be fine if we ordered him pizza and we would save money on his dinner. My husband insisted that since it was his daughter's birthday, she should have the right to choose the restaurant. He felt that his son would be fine at home with pizza and video games. However, I wanted both of our children with us. We can't often afford family outings to a restaurant, so I insisted on choosing a different place. In the end, my daughter chose the other restaurant, and we all had a good time at dinner together. Despite this, she was a little upset because she was not able to visit the restaurant of her original choice. Criticizing your approach to choosing a restaurant for your daughter's birthday party may seem harsh. You may be fixated on the fact that your son won't like the food, which may seem like ignoring his allergies. Your desire to celebrate your daughter's birthday together seems reasonable, but your actions were perceived as an unwillingness to accommodate her wishes. Perhaps you could have used the event as a chance to spend time with your daughter alone without the rest of the family. Instead, a rare opportunity was missed, leading to conflict and possible sibling animosity. Your son was apparently willing to stay home and spend time with pizza and video games. Your daughter probably would not have resented him for this decision. Your choice of venue should not put one child above another, especially when your son was willing to stay home. Your desire to make sure everyone was together may have become more important than the wishes of other family members. As a result, it appears that you have enforced your own preferences by ignoring your daughter's original choice. By creating the illusion of choice, you may have limited her ability to make her own decision. In the end, the daughter seems to have chosen what you prefer despite her own desires. Now I want to tell a different story. I am 38 years old female. As a third wheel, I accompany my best friend, who is 39 years old, and her new 40-year-old boyfriend. On New Year's Eve, we booked an accommodation through Airbnb. I paid the entire amount with my card, as the account is registered only to me. It was our first meeting, so I didn't know much about him and we didn't have much communication. Let's call them Andy and Anna. Anna paid her portion pretty quickly. 2 weeks later, I had to remind her about the payment. She replied that she planned to get her share from Andy and transfer it to me. I replied that was fine, but honestly, it would have seemed more appropriate for her to transfer both shares to me at once and then receive payment from him. That's what I would have done, and my boyfriend, who hadn't joined us, agreed. I found out later that Andy was upset with her, as he is very frugal. She mentioned that the place would be much cheaper than expected. Anna chose the place and insisted on booking it. After their argument, she decided to wait until passion settled before bringing up the payment again. I was annoyed because it seemed like she should have covered his share as soon as possible instead of putting me in a weird position. I had to wait for him to pay her and her to pay me. It resembled a game of telephone with money. I was left hanging. They fought a lot and the topic of payment quickly faded into the background. 2 months later, they both seemed to have forgotten about it. I contacted her on a Sunday in early March. She was shocked to learn that no payment had happened yet. I believe her surprise, as she can be forgetful sometimes. It doesn't seem like she is avoiding payment intentionally. She mentioned that she had been communicating with him this week. I thanked her, but frankly, I'm offended. After all, they are a couple and I believe that paying his share is her obligation to me. At our age, following such rules of etiquette should be obvious. She doesn't seem to realize that I'm in an awkward position. In her mind, we are 3 equal and independent people. After paying her share, she seems to have forgotten about how much he owes me. This would be understandable if I was also on friendly terms with her boyfriend. But I haven't been friends with him for 2 months now. If I borrow money from someone, I put a reminder and try to pay as soon as possible. If I can't pay immediately, I take it upon myself to call weekly and remind her that I haven't forgotten about the debt. In this case, I had to chase her down, making her feel like she was shifting the burden of remembering to me, which should have been her responsibility. Plus, she had to pay both of their shares. There are things I'm trying to understand. Her job is toxic, and she has health issues because of her upcoming surgery next month. They are not serious, but still scary. She is also fighting with her boyfriend. I'm trying to be sympathetic to her, but I also think it's unfair to me. I feel like an idiot for asking her to pay me with her own money and deal with him at her convenience. You're not an idiot for telling your friend you need to pay. Right now, you don't care who he or she is, but it was a mistake not to get the funds before the trip or not to offer to calculate the total balance in anticipation of the weekend. After all, you rented a place to stay for New Year's Eve. This person has already used the service, and he's a mature 40-year-old man, not a teenager who has to learn how to pay his bills. He just doesn't seem to want to pay. You may have to forgive that debt and rethink this friendship. You may have to consider the money lost. He seems to be hoping that Anna will pay it all off or that you'll all forget about the debt and you'll end up paying it all yourself. The relationship between Andy and Anna is not your problem. You don't have to tiptoe around her. Tell her straight up to pay, no matter where she gets the money from. If she refuses because she doesn't want to look like the bad person in their relationship, offer to let her give you his number. You can try to put social pressure on him. And if their relationship starts to get rough because of this debt, so be it. My next story. I have a younger brother and sister. Ben and Zoya are twins. They are 19 years old. There are often conflicts between them. Because of their constant fighting, our mom once confessed to me that she sometimes regrets having many children, although it was a joke. Both of them, in their own way, are to blame for the disagreements that arise, as well as mom. Dad pays more attention to Zoya, thinking Ben is not serious. Zoya is in college in a challenging program, and I am truly proud of her accomplishments. She has worked hard to succeed. Ben has no aspirations to go back to school and avoids talking about it. He is involved in art, draws a lot, and although he is sometimes stubborn, he should have thought more seriously about his future. Not necessarily about school, but it's still his choice. However, it will be hard to live on the earnings from casual work for long. Our parents invited my husband and me over for dinner. When we arrived, we immediately noticed the tense atmosphere between Ben and Zoya. During dinner, Zoya suddenly announced that Ben had a girl pregnant with Ben's child. This announcement made Daddy very indignant. He did not listen to Ben. Events developed rapidly. Dad went into Ben's room and threw all of his art supplies out the window. He then took Ben's guitar and locked it in the basement, calling his son several insulting words. I had never seen Ben in such a state of confusion and despair. When he was able to pull himself together and begin to explain, it became clear that everything was just a mistake. No girl was actually pregnant by him. He now shut himself in his room and didn't even go to work. My mom told me about it and I felt really bad for him. My dad doesn't seem concerned about his misunderstanding. He thinks Ben's fear is evidence of his guilt. Zoe has no remorse. She claims that she simply expressed her concern and that Ben deserves to be punished for his dreams and illusions. Because of this, I have stopped giving Zoya the money I used to give her for personal expenses, just as I used to give Ben. My mom understands my decision, but my dad keeps calling me and reproaching me for being biased. He claims that I'm doing the wrong thing by punishing Zoya and approving of Ben's behavior. I told my father that I don't want to talk to him anymore, and he replied that he is disappointed in me. My husband thinks I should have talked to my father longer, but I'm sure the limits were exceeded this time. Some of the things my father threw away, Ben created almost 10 years ago. To see Zoya smiling at that moment was truly frightening. You're not an idiot, not at all. You have serious challenges ahead of you. Your siblings can truly count themselves lucky to have a caring sister like you. You're doing the right thing. Dad seems to favor some children over others. Your brother faces quite a few challenges. Sometimes it does take younger men longer to find their way. That doesn't always mean laziness. Your sister, unfortunately, is being extremely selfish and hurting your brother on purpose. This is going too far. I wouldn't support her financially until she apologizes and starts acting differently. Why reward her for inappropriate behavior? Your father calls me all the time, accusing me of bias. Ironic, considering how he spoiled his youngest daughter over the years. Isn't that idiotic behavior towards his son? The brother may be living in his own artistic fantasy world, but it's not his fault. Your sister, on the other hand, is being completely selfish and spiteful. Your father is not being a good parent. Zoya's behavior is horrible. It's hard for me to understand how an adult can behave like 8-year-old kids trying to get each other in trouble for parental attention. Ben was hopefully able to save some of his artwork. I'm wondering if there is a possibility for Ben to stay with you for a while. Perhaps together you can work out a plan to help him become self-sufficient. Leaving home and getting away from these people might be the best solution for him. He cannot continue to live in this house forever with only a part-time job, a story that really surprised me. I'm 25 years old, I'm a man. My girlfriend is a year older than me. We were together for about a year. Recently, I decided to break up with her. The reason was due to some unpleasant discoveries about our past. Before we became a couple, we had a long period of dating. For 3 months, we flirted and socialized, went on several dates. In the last month of our communication, which happened mostly online, she acted distant. She dodged my questions about the future of our relationship. I told her that we had been discussing our dating for 3 months. We needed to decide if we wanted to move on. She had always avoided these questions. After a period of detachment, she returned to her usual behavior. Told me we should be exclusive. I agreed last week. I learned from one of her friends that during that period, she was socializing with another guy. Insisted that guy contacted her and was actively pursuing her. This seemed to explain why she was suspended. She went back to communicating with me out of the blue. Call me insecure if you want. That may be true, but it doesn't feel right to me. According to the story, I was the second choice. I was no different than the backup. I talked to her about it and consulted with friends. She and her friends told me that she dated and talked to other guys. But in the end, she chose me. I am the prize. I should be happy. Women tend to choose the best option available, and I'm the best. I can't even understand that logic. In the end, I decided to break up. People told me what I did was wrong. I'm an idiot. You're not an idiot. You would have been with her if the other guy hadn't walked away from her. I guess not. Your girlfriend and her friends don't think otherwise. She didn't choose you. The other guy turned her down and she had no choice. When they said you were the prize, it was like a consolation. That's why it took so long for us to be exclusive. But what has become the norm, in my opinion, is creating problems. If you go on a third date, you should be exclusive. You shouldn't experience different people for months on end. The same goes for being on a break. Are you breaking up or not? If we break up, I don't want to see your face again. We can still be friends though. X is X, probably for some old-fashioned reason, but it doesn't matter.